welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week, we are talking about a movie that I definitely remember discussing on the Reddit Horror Club. I don't remember if Scott was a co-host at that time or not.
I watched it for it, but I was not a co-host yet.
And Kyle, you picked this one, and I gotta say, I forgot how much this movie goes from 0 to 0 to 0 to 0 to 1,000.
Yeah. Do you really think that it goes to 1,000? Because I think that it gets to a solid 60.
Yeah. But man, the build to get to that 60 is you are just a stalled out car for like an hour and 5 minutes.
I forgot the beats of this movie, and I went back onto my letterbox when I logged it, and I was like, oh, it's because I haven't watched it since 2015.
Okay.
But what spawned it for me was I was looking back through my bookshelf, and I had saw that I kept the Sentinel, a copy of it that I had read on the train while I was when I was working at Jump Cut Cafe. It was my train book when I wasn't actively falling asleep on public transit. It's a finely written book. I mean, it is like the same way that we can really kind of categorize 70s horror cinema. There is a style of 70s horror book that exists.
And it seems like the author was not happy with this movie
adaptation
was not. For the most part.
Yeah, which is I guess I would say is maybe valid. I think that like a lot of times it feels like those 70s horror ones. This feels like a last hurrah of gothic horror in a lot of ways, like where it's like still this. There is Satan and the devil involved, and by the time that any filmmakers in the mid 70s were doing it, it was pretty like it was because it was almost a joke. Like, you know, having it was. I mean, you try to make it as serious as you can. This isn't. There's some funny bits. I mean, there's a birthday party for a cat, but
I don't think that. So the interesting thing about this movie was that a lot of critics thought that it was a pastiche when it came out. And I don't think that it was made I don't think that Michael Skinner was going for pastiche when he did this.
No. Well, so like that's the thing here's the thing. This is not a movie that I will probably ever just like casually sit down and watch ever again. But it's like a movie that I'm glad that I own. It's a movie that I'm glad that I've seen, because like I don't think that there's a lot of movies that exist like this movie. Like this is a very strange movie in the sense of if you told me this was an Italian film, absolutely. But the fact that this is like a major American studio production is weird.
With
like
a crazy cast.
Yeah, with a stacked cast. And as much as people will be like, oh, it's pulling elements from like Rosemary's Baby or Exorcist, this is so much more insane than either one of those movies in like what they do in it. Like it's like I think the first time I watched it for Reddit Horror Club, I'm pretty sure that I thought that it was like an Italian-made movie that just had a bunch of American actors throughout it, because like it's definitely got like the 70s Italian dubbing problem throughout large chunks of it, but like also just like the way that the violence is shot and like the twists and turns just feel like more of what I'm used to from like 70s Italy than anything that a major American studio was producing.
Mm-hmm. No, it's true. It's true. It has these beats and these notes and these scenes specifically that are just bonkers.
The movie is also like a lot of tell instead of showing us. Like every character's anything is so heavy-handedly explained to us.
Yeah. No, it is. But you know, for the I guess it's not the twist, because it really does happen kind of early on, but for this more unexpected reason that we're meeting all these characters, it comes up pretty quick in the movie. It comes up like halfway, and not even in like a climactic way. It's just kind of like told to this person, and then we just have to be like, oh, so now we as audiences have to like reestablish why we're watching this at all.
Well, and then like, okay, so I'm going to make a reference to an actor who in my brain didn't even exist in the 70s, so it's crazy that he's the lead in this movie. But Chris Sarandon,
and that young Christopher Walken is so weird. I mean, like this
or
whole
the
cast
dubbed
is
Jeff
nuts.
Goldblum.
Goldblum was.
I believe that all of his lines were 80-yard. Were all
of
dubbed.
them. Yes.
I don't think that he even had one line of actual dialogue.
I mean,
in this
almost
movie.
all of his scenes are outside, so that also makes sense. Chris Sarandon's character, like the big reveal that he killed his wife, is just told to us at the end of the movie while a million other crazy things are already happening, and it suddenly is like the
almost
least
irrelevant.
important. Yeah, it's like the least important thing that's happening at that point. He's just like, because I hired so and so to kill my wife. And it's like, you realize that like there's like the devil here right now.
played by Burgess Meredith, which is awesome.
Oh, Burgess Meredith is what makes this movie watchable, in all honesty.
Yeah, no,
he is
he's
such
so
a
good.
delight in any like. I strongly recommend, if you're ever like interested in watching old Twilight Zone episodes, look for literally any episode that Burgess Meredith was in. Like everyone knows the Time Enough At Last one. That's like the classic one that he did. But he was in like, I think he was in one episode every season, and he's such a talented actor. Like he can do anything. Like he does the drama great, but obviously you've seen him play Penguin in Batman. Like he can do absurd and wacky characters so sincerely that you buy into it. And it's like, I buy into this weird ass dude with his bird and his cat parties and shit.
Dude,
like
he's iconic.
Yeah.
I want to be him. If I was a lonely old bachelor, I would move to New York City, wear tweed suits, have a canary or a parakeet rather, and a cat that I have birthday parties for. That's how I would live out the rest of my life.
And
I'd just be
spend
fucking weird.
$500 a month on basically a house to rent. Like that apartment was the size of an actual home.
Yeah, I
could
was
not
looking. I was
believe-
so jealous of how tall the ceilings. Those are like 12-foot ceilings. It's insane.
Insane ceilings, $500 a month in New York. I don't know where, but it was.
It's definitely rent controlled, guys. Sorry.
See, it's funny, Scott, you use the word iconic to describe Burgess Meredith, and iconic showed up in my notes as well, but for a completely different thing, which was her cutting off her dad's zombie nose, and it's that close up. Like probably one of the best moments in the whole movie. The start of this movie, by the way, I had to check the time. The first 8 minutes of this movie feels like 30 minutes of plot development.
Because you see her dad
Everything.
having a threesome, and then she commits suicide.
What, that's not how you celebrate your birthday?
I loved the larger woman of the two,
Yeah.
who's like, I love watching my boyfriend's daughter have a breakdown. I'm just gonna eat some cake naked.
Yeah.
Just eat cake.
Just
yeah.
eating cake,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
It's,
The surrealness of it, which I guess that's the word I would use for it, was so bland. Like it was like there was which I
Chris
loved.
Sarandon
I loved that.
sleepwalks through this whole fucking movie. So when
Yeah.
he's doing his confession after he's been murdered, I'm just like, man. So the interesting thing about this was that Michael Skinner, in later interviews, was very unhappy. No one had a good time making this movie.
No, so you're gonna make a lot of references, Scott, to things that happened on the Blu-ray commentary track, and I have listened to this commentary track before, and it is, if you are someone who only casually listens to commentary tracks, the Sentinel's a good one, because man, it is like no holds barred. Just them being like, well, this was garbage. This sucked. This wasn't great. This actor can't act. Like he does not care anymore.
Yeah,
He's just airing grievances for 90 minutes on this commentary.
Well, he did not want Chris Sarandon or Catherine or whatever her name is to play the main character. He wanted Beverly D'Angelo and
Christopher Walken, I think.
Christopher Walken as the leads, which is crazy to me because I believe
And think of where they ended up.
Yeah.
In this movie.
Yeah, it's so funny because this was Beverly D'Angelo's film debut, masturbating in front of the main character. Which, I mean, she did a great job. I mean, I'm not criticizing that. I'm just saying, like, how fucked is it if that would have been her only film credit? You know, if she would have been like,
Right.
yeah, this turned me off of doing
over
my
for her.
art, you know. And then Christopher Walken, I don't even know if he has a line in this movie. He just plays a sleazy detective.
Yeah.
I don't think he does. I'm not sure.
I see him like harumph in the background. That's all
I think he's
remember.
in 2 scenes,
Yeah.
one with maybe a couple lines of dialogue.
I mean,
Really
literally,
wild.
Tom Berenger has more dialogue, and
Yeah,
he doesn't
and
even
he's in
have
the
a
last
name.
scene.
Yeah,
Also, did you guys catch
Man
Richard
at
Dreyfuss?
End is his credited character.
Yeah. Did you catch Richard Dreyfuss? He's got some sort of uncredited cameo somewhere
not.
near the end, and I
did
don't
not
know
see
who
it.
it was.
Did not
No.
catch it. Other names that people might know that popped up in this movie.
Ava Gardner.
Ava fucking Gardner.
Ava Gardner. But
I
also,
love that. Did you hear that Michael Skinner cast her because he said that he was going around New York City and every realtor looked like her?
Yeah.
I love it.
I also got to give a shout out, small role that he plays, but William Hickey shows up, and like that dude. This is the first time I've been like, oh, he wasn't always an old man. Like
Right.
I only know him for looking about 1,000 every time
Yeah.
that I see him in something.
Boy, John
Yeah.
Carradine looks 1,000 in everything I've ever seen.
Right.
That is true.
Right. Sylvia Miles is in here. And then, like, I mean, I was watching those credits, and obviously I know Jeff Goldblum wasn't a person ever, like,
Yet.
then. But
He
to
wasn't a
watch those-
person.
He wasn't a person. I mean, he didn't have a voice. They ADR'd the whole thing. But, like, to watch those credits roll and roll and roll
Yeah.
and roll, and just to see him, like, I swear it was like third to last on those credits. I was just like, what a time.
It is funny that this movie, and this is like, you know, they always throw these types of factoids on IMDb and shit anyway, but that him and Christopher Walken have barely nothing to do in this movie, and the same year they had barely anything to do in Annie Hall as well. Like, they
Yeah,
just are
but it's
people
like,
at
oh, they're
party
both in Annie
scenes.
Hall. Yeah,
like-
come on.
Right. Right.
Did you-
That's a New York thing, right? It's got to be.
Yeah, I
I
guess
was,
that-
I was there.
Yeah, it's literally just, hey, it's New York. Like,
Yeah.
But then I guess everything kind of, I'm looking at his IMDb credits, and I guess things really probably turned around the next year, because the next year was the 1978 Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where, like, he's a pretty high-ranking character in that movie throughout it. I think, and then you get, like, The Big Chill, The Right Stuff, Buckaroo Banzai, obviously.
Such a huge movie.
I mean, massive. And then, yeah, The Fly. Then you get into, like, the late 80s where it's like, oh, Jeff Goldblum. Yes, I know. who Jeff
And literally
Goldblum
everything.
is.
And then you get to the 90s where he becomes a caricature of himself, and then he somehow reinvents himself as a pastiche of himself. It's incredible.
It's really incredible.
His
that
show-
show that he
I'm
does
t-
on Disney Plus.
I was going to say, the
like,
show
is-
he does on Disney Plus, watching this man be fascinated by the simplest of things is
so happy.
so wholesome to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kyle,
There was
did
an
you
episode
realize-
just about how shoes get made, and, like,
And he's just like, what?
What is
I mean,
happening?
he's eating more Doritos than I am.
Yeah.
Like, that
I
dude
think he's
is,
microdosing acid, my friend.
Yeah,
I don't think
he's
that it's
gotta be.
Doritos.
He's gotta be.
But two things. One, this is actually a direct relation to your last fucking pick, which was, or was that 2 ago when you picked Party Line? Wasn't there a comment about Paradise Lost in that?
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So the Latin
Clocked it.
words written down by Allison were tibi sortu cursus tum vigilia que sereva munis, which are supposed to be from John Milton's Paradise Lost, but apparently the literal translation is watching your office and running, which is just I don't even know how they I don't know if that's
How'd they
real or
get to
not.
that point?
I don't even care. That just sounds like they ran it through Google Translate 6 times, and it's back and forth 6 times. And I thought that it was incredible that Paradise Lost came up again.
Again,
That was
and,
really
and
weird.
Scott, I need to correct you. Party Line wasn't the last thing that Kyle watched because of a clerical error. It was actually Dead Ringers.
That's right.
Just a mere 2 weeks after we discussed Party Line.
That's right. That's right.
And actually, hold on a second. Wait.
Is there any thematic elements in this one? No, we're good. We were in the clear on Kyle's choices.
Okay, no, I just
would
wanted
say
to-
there's a
I
lot
forgot-
of silk negligee amiss. That was also a lot of silk negligee worn by both brother and sister
Yes,
in
that's true.
Party Line.
And Party Line.
Yes.
That's true.
But that's all right. That's all right.
Pills and wine. Also, that's the classic dinner of
Classic
the
combo.
female protagonists in both this and Party Line.
So this movie was controversial, though, when it came out.
Did it have to get edited down or something?
Well, I did read that there was an edited version that makes 0 sense because they cut
That
out
was for
all
TV,
of
though, right?
Yeah, the TV version has no gore, no nudity, and like
I
all
wonder
no
if the
references
TV
to the
version's
devil.
on is the TV
so-
version on the Blu-ray? Do you know?
I don't know. I don't believe so.
It's probably
I'll have to go
lost.
But no, the controversy, something that was also controversial in 1932 was the fact that like Mike Skinner hired actual
1932.
Guys, I just have
You'll
to
understand what
us.
I'm talking about in a second.
It's Michael Winner.
Sorry, Michael Winner.
Yeah.
What did I
keep
say,
saying
Skinner? I
We've
kept
been
saying
Skinner.
There's a race car driver named Mike Skinner that I was like, oh wow, that's the same
Yeah,
name.
what are the
And then
chances?
Hey, Matt, can you retroactively go
No,
back and
that's-
ADR me to sound like I'm saying
all,
the right
that's
thing
all
the whole time?
Sorry. Yeah,
I definitely
Michael-
wrote it down as Michael Winner, but I don't know. I was thinking about that horrible movie Skinner.
Yeah.
and
Yes.
that's why,
Yeah.
because it's
It was-
schlock
I
and
think
cowpick schlock.
It's valid how we got here. I just
Yeah.
wanted to.
Thank you for
Justice for
letting me know.
Michael
I
Winner.
appreciate it.
So Michael Winner got a lot of negative press for the choice of actually hiring like people from an oddity show.
yes.
And this similar to the issues that Todd Browning had in 1932 when he cast real life sideshow freaks for the movie Freaks.
Freaks, yeah.
And I don't like I don't know if that's a good like I don't know. I feel like that's one of those weird topics where I'm like I mean they're
you don't
getting
have to have an opinion about
paid.
everything.
You know, no, but I mean, like, I'm like, is that truly controversial? Like, I don't know. I feel like if it's exploitative, like the problem with Freaks was like, motherfuckers just didn't pay these people that much to be in the movie Freaks.
Well, and I know that Michael Winner he tried very hard, at least based on his assertions, was that he tried very hard to pay them, feed them. You know, they were only on set for like 2 days or something like that, or 1 day. I think it might have actually been 1 day. I did read a blurb that said that he didn't want them to feel left out, and so he was going to eat lunch with them because like I guess that the actors unions made them have a separate tent, not because they were sideshow people, but rather because they were sideshow people and they weren't in the actors union. They were mostly from like carnivals, and so they had to be in a separate tent for their lunch that day when they were on set, or whatever 2 days they were on set. And he was going to go eat lunch with them, but apparently it was quote unquote too hot that day. So I don't know if that's retroactive. Like
it's like he almost did a good thing.
he almost did a good thing.
Yeah.
So, but
It's too hot. I can't.
But the thing is that I love the fact that Jeffrey Convitz, the guy who wrote The Sentinel, and then he wrote The Guardian, which was the sequel, and then I don't know if he was going to or actually did write a third book in this series, but there was supposedly going to be a third book that was talking about how there are many galaxies in like all these realities, and hell and Satan can get to all of them, but the Sentinel needs to be on Earth. Yeah. I don't know exactly what happens there. It's on the Blu-ray commentary. But Jeffrey Convitz was unhappy specifically with that final scene when all of the sideshow the oddities people show up, because it's supposed to be their minions of hell, their demons in the flesh. He hated the way that Michael Winner lit the scene. He said that they should have been all in shadows, which actually makes a lot more sense.
I think that makes more sense.
And that would have been less exploitative, right?
Completely, because I think that's the problem. Is like, I mean, like these they're sideshow actors. Like they'll get paid and they'll do the performance, and it's like that's kind of like the gig, right? It's like
and they got paid to just stand around and shuffle a little bit.
I mean,
it's
get
a good
hired
gig.
because you have a third arm, you know?
Yeah,
Like that's
so wait,
like,
Jose, I want to point out something. This is ridiculous. I'm sorry. I just stumbled into this. So the author who wrote this, Convitz?
Convitz, yep.
Convitz. So
Convict music.
So he gets convict music. No, so he gets credit for writing a couple screenplays, specifically The Sentinel and Silent Night, Bloody Night were his compositions. Then he goes on to be a film producer, and I just want to read the films that this man has produced.
I was hoping you would.
Cyborg 2, Bloodsport 2, Spy Hard, starring Leslie Nielsen, also starring Leslie Nielsen, 2001: A Space Travesty, something called O Jerusalem, and something called The Flock, which I imagine are probably both like Christian whatever, and then Under the Silver Lake from 2018.
Dude, that's crazy. That one surprised the hell out of me. I was like, how? Why?
Like nothing makes sense.
But
now.
then when you go to that Wikipedia, he's not listed in the producers at all. So it's like, oh, okay. So 1 million people helped on that one.
Like, and he gave $5. And
right. Yeah.
he's like,
Oh,
I
he
liked
got a
It Follows
producer's credit
enough.
through
Here's some money.
Indiegogo. Yeah.
And they gave him a T-shirt because he because he paid $50 for the T-shirt.
Okay, apparently The Flock is not a Christian movie like I thought. It is an American thriller film from the co-director of the Internal Affairs trilogy, It's his first English-speaking film starring Richard Gere and Claire Danes.
Okay,
So,
word.
I feel like my world is upside down, and it's going to get worse if you tell me that The Boondock Saints is not a religious movie.
Listen. Oh my God! Hold on a second. Is that who I think? Okay, no, that's not who I think it is.
Kyle, what do you have in your hand there,
Yeah,
buddy?
what are you drinking over there?
Oh, I got Steeple People because we're talking about
nice.
religiosity over here and all those cardinals and popes who need to keep a lid on the fucking entrance to hell.
I feel like it's just got to be multiple, right? Like they've got to have
they
sentinels
can't be
elsewhere.
the only apartment complex that's built over hell. Like,
Yeah,
I know
we
New
watched
York-
Buffy the Vampire Slayer multiple times. Come on, guys, we know
Yeah,
that series.
we know.
There's more than one Hellmouth. I'm drinking the blood of Christ. FYI.
Yes.
Look, I'm saying you guys could have drank the same thing as last week because this movie is basically the same plot.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have an idea for a podcast but don't know where to start? Or do you have an already existing podcast that you want to take to the next level? Well, check out WeKnowPodcasting.com. From concept development to theme music to editing to logos, WeKnowPodcasting.com is a one-stop shop for all things pod. Don't hesitate to hit us up. We're very nice.
All right, well, Kyle, you picked this bad boy. What's your double feature going to be with this?
So I'm picking a movie called The Seventh Victim, which is a Val Lewton produced movie about a woman who lives in an apartment complex where there's a cult that's involved in that complex. And
Is it the same movie?
yeah, it's not the same movie. It's not so much like over hell, but it's more about this like woman who is like deeply depressed and like conspiratorial, but nobody really kind of like believes her.
Sounds like a complex movie about a complex.
Yeah, that
Wow.
it
You should have just said
nice,
a complex movie and let Kyle figure it out because damn, that was a good joke.
I wouldn't have gotten there. Well, I might have, but I don't have a lot of confidence in myself right now. My brain is fried. But that's my double feature. It's black and white. It's moodier, but like these sort of like stories that happen in apartments where everybody has a characterization of themselves is pretty interesting to me because I don't know how or if you could kind of do that now. You know, I wonder what it would look like.
I feel like the closest you get is weirdly like a show like Only Murders in the Building, where like you slowly make because it's a show and you can do as many episodes as you want, you can flesh out each tenant. But like I think there's a reason why a movie like Rosemary's Baby is 2 hours long because you literally are taking time to make this character know every neighbor for the big ending for all of them to come together. Like it's tough to do in our, I don't know. We make 3.5 hour movies on a regular now. Maybe you could do it.
Or you can just make an 8-hour movie and call it a TV show.
That's true. Right. Or my biggest pet peeve when they make a documentary and then release it in 2 45-minute parts and call it a docuseries. And I'm like, just fucking release it as a movie. I don't understand. It drives me absolutely nuts. All right, Scott. What would your double feature be with this?
If I was trying to save the night, I would go with Carnival of Souls.
The night. Oh.
Because I love that movie. I would love to do that movie on the show. I just don't know if it would really hit, you know? Like
We could do the remake.
No, we cannot do the remake, Kyle. Seriously.
Says who?
But says me. Please don't put me through that.
I don't want to watch
because
it.
I will accidentally watch the one from the 60s.
Yeah.
But then also I would add to the flavor of the night with a quick intermission between them. I would watch Sentinel, I would have an intermission, and then I would watch Carnival of Souls. But between that, I would listen to Judas Priest's song from Defenders of the Faith from 1984 called The Sentinel, because that song, I have wondered for years and years if it is very loosely based on the movie or the book. And rereading the lyrics today, pretty sure it's not. Pretty sure it's not.
It's a nice intermission song, though.
Yeah, the song fucking rips. What about you, Matt?
So this one's not. Usually, I feel like when I pick these, it's very on point with like a plot beat or something. This is more of a vibe, and the vibe that I'm thinking is like kind of slow. Occasionally, it'll give you moments like a nose being cut off to keep you enticed, but the real reason you're there is the third act. Society would be my double feature with this.
That's honestly,
You know what I mean? Like it's like you got to sit through a lot, but man, do you get the payoff finally after a long wait. So Kyle, have you watched, read, listened to, done anything that you wanna put on a pedestal?
I got a few partials.
All right.
One I think that I'm going to finish and talk about next week. So what I'm started watching is Sex Life of College Girls.
I've heard good things. Yeah.
And it's so much fun. Like, again, I mean, I've told you numerous times on the show how bad I am at TV, and it will take me a long time to get to the end of this. But my wife Carly watched it with her friend Callie when she visits. Our friends live in Waco, and so like we don't visit often, but like when there's an opportunity to go visit, Carly will they'll catch up on shows that they text or talk about, right?
Of course, yeah.
So last time they went down, they watched season 2. And she came back and she was like, season 2 was so good. Like, I really, really want you to watch season 1. And they are. I think like season 1's great. Like, I'm maybe 4 or 5 episodes in. Really funny. Like, it's Mindy Kaling, which I think sometimes people get annoyed with. And I think
I don't like
often,
her.
Sorry. Yeah. And I
mean, Velma was a real whiff. But
the thing.
Was that
thing
Mindy
about,
Kaling?
Yeah, it was bad.
Oops. Yeah.
It was a real strikeout.
I think that I think that Mindy Kaling has.
But I like some of her stuff too. Like I don't.
Right.
But yeah, but I want it to like Velma, but I feel like Sex Lives of College Girls feels more of what I want Mindy Kaling to be doing.
Right, well, that's the thing is that like I feel like the comedy and the writing that Kaling does is great for that concept and content, and it's just like I'm having so much fun with it. It does feel like a type of like college age thing that I can relate to, like a lot of times, like I mean I know Euphoria is high school and early, but like it's also like that feels so out of
any
like
connected piece for you.
Yeah. Well, at the same time, like something like, I mean, maybe it's just a generational thing, because like then at the same time, like kids, even though that's like really dark and like
so dark.
And I can't. But
no. Relate is not the right word, but I comprehend it more.
Yes.
If that makes any sense. And like this, so this is like, obviously this is light and fun and like, it's much more joyful. But I relate to that more just in its, I don't know, just in its portrayal of that age group. So I've been having fun with it.
Nice. How about you, Scott?
I watched, and I did post a non-spoilery comment about it, or I made a non-spoilery post about it on our Facebook page, but I watched Kids vs. Aliens, which is the, I know you guys know, but I'll tell for listeners who do not know, it is the full-length version of the, what is it called? Alien
Slumber Party or something?
Slumber Party Abduction segment from VHS 2.
Which is one of my favorite, probably, like, because it's just dumb fun in VHS 2. After, like, 3 or 4 very serious shorts, it was like, oh, this is stupid.
I forget that it's in VHS 2 because of the cult one, which, I always thought it was in 1 as well, because if I ever go back to VHS 2, I'm just watching the cult one. That's because it's there's no, I mean, yes, I will watch every VHS that comes out because they're free on Shudder.
But I feel like every single one of them, there's usually one story. You're like, okay, that is the one saving grace, if any, in those movies.
But I mean, the most recent one was god awful, and I hated everything about it. But nothing will ever touch the cult one from VHS 2. But I did enjoy. I also don't think that it would work as a full length. So I hope that no one thinks that that's what I'm saying here. But
it's also a really long short.
It's like a good 30 minutes. I mean, or 28. It's long as fuck. Kids vs. Aliens is very fun. It kind of feels like a Halloween, a teen Halloween movie that kind of apes the FP and Turbo Kid a little bit.
Okay.
In thematic elements as well as style, and a little bit of it takes itself a little bit more seriously than something than like Psycho Gorman. Like it's not an Astro 7. Astro 7. That's what they're called, right?
Yeah. Astro 6.
Astron 6. Sorry, whatever. I don't like them. And I did not like Psycho Gorman, but I did. I mean, you know how much I love Turbo Kid, and so since Kids vs. Aliens had a bit of that like hyper gory but not so tongue-in-cheek tone.
Yeah.
I enjoyed my watch. It felt long. I think it was only like an hour and 35 minutes, but it felt long because there's only so much you can do with the premise.
Yeah.
But there are some absolutely fantastic moments in it when the kids get on the alien ship. Super fucking great.
Cool.
But also it takes a while to get going. And there's a lot of exposition in the beginning with them kind of setting up the kids and the human antagonist is so fucking unrealistic. I know, but he's not like, he's super unrealistic, but he's not cartoonish enough. So that's my biggest criticism. That does not take away from the watch. I just mean that like sometimes there were parts where I was watching this, I'm like, I could fast forward. I didn't, but I was like, I could fast forward and I'd be fine. But those were short, you know, like the scenes that I didn't love were short, and then they were followed up by absolute ridiculousness that reminded me a lot of Turbo Kid. Not as tongue-in-cheek as the FP, but that same kind of concept of like, we're scrappy, we're trying to pay homage to 80s aesthetics and wrestling. But it's fun. It's super fun movie. And the kids say "fuck" a lot.
We
so
love.
much.
We love to hear it.
Yeah,
we love
yeah.
to hear it.
Yeah.
I love Eisner. I really like Eisner's stuff. I wouldn't like necessarily like pop him up there as like a filmmaker that I like will always seek out a new one. But if there's like, well, actually that's not true. I mean, even Dark Side of the Ring, like the series, like I was like, oh, I mean, Eisner made it what was interesting and fun to watch, or else it would just be kind of a dry wrestling documentary series. Turbo Kid obviously being in that ballpark too. I mean, like not everybody can kind of do that, and that's cool to hear about Kids versus Aliens, because even with Turbo Kid or even with Hobo with a Shotgun, there's moments where I'm like, oh, okay, like I don't need this. But like, how often do we talk about those movies that he's paying homage to having those moments where we're like, oh, I don't need that. I don't, you know? It's actually kind of on par. It's almost a perfect mimic if that's the case.
Yeah.
Which I'll give props to.
So I'm gonna rattle off a lot, but mostly because like most of these I don't have anything worth acknowledging. I had like a Friday night where I was
this is
like,
a grocery list.
This is like a grocery list. I had a
recommendation
Friday
list,
night where I was like, all right, I'm just literally going to sit here and edit podcasts while I have some movies that I'm only semi-interested in watching on in the background.
Love those days.
So like Knock at the Cabin, totally fine. Perfect like mid-tier M. Night Shyamalan movie.
Is it an M. Night Shyamalan movie, or is it just in the style of?
He produced.
No, he produced.
Okay.
He produced and I believe directed
book.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Tremblay, which is a great author, but I have not read that book.
Matt, have you read it?
No.
Because I need to know if it's worth watching. I kind of just want to read the book. You know?
I mean, it's just sitting on Peacock. It's there if you have Peacock.
That's true. Well, I do thanks to you.
But
keep it in the family.
then I also watched Climax, based on a recommendation from somebody. Which,
is that dance movie?
Yeah, which is only recommended if you are like a film nerd, because it's a very unpleasant watch.
Yep.
But it's a movie that's built around a very intense 42-minute uncut tracking shot, which is like
42 minutes.
42 minutes. It is so impressive to watch. And it is so miserable what you're watching for the 42 minutes. So it's like, I'm glad I watched it, but I will there is never going to be a chance that I ever even think about putting it on again.
Filmmakers suck.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's the guy who did Irreversible. Like, it's what you can expect from his filmmaking style. Yeah.
That makes total sense, and total sense why I'm not fucking watching
exactly. it. Watched Barbarian. Finally, I really put it off for a really long time. I wish that the movie was what I thought the movie was going to be the first 25 minutes. Like, I was really into the eeriness and creepiness that the movie set up. And then, like, it's probably of the three that I watched, the only one that I was like, I might watch this again, just because I didn't know what it was watching it. So I was very disappointed when everything turned. And I'm like, maybe I'll like it more knowing what it actually is and just like accepting it for that. But those are all very lukewarm things. The big thing I'm going to tell you is that hopefully by the time this is out, Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves is on a streaming site because that movie fucking ruled. Like, that movie was fantastic. Whether you're a D&D fan or not, it's just a great sword and sorcery, high fantasy, 80s throwback film with like incredible performances across the board. It's super funny. It's got great monsters. It's got great action sequences.
You had me at great monsters.
Like, it's fun. It's like, there's no other words to say it. It's a fun movie. So definitely check that out. But a movie that maybe you want to check out, maybe, is The Sentinel. Because
Happy birthday, Jezebel!
Yeah, Jezebel's birthday. Celebrate your cat's birthday by putting on The Sentinel from 1977. And we will be back next week with one of my picks. I'm going back into the trauma well and seeing what we can pull
I love
out
how
of that.
Kyle's shocked that this one's happening.
I had to remember it.
So stay tuned for that.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.